Emotional safety part two. So, like I said, I want to do a few parts for this. What I'd like to say about this today is emotional safety is not something that is hugely understood or taught in our society. And this happens from childhood, from the generations before. I mean, when we think about the past and how brutal things were, I mean, it's gotten better, which is kind of crazy because in some ways you sort of think, how could it be better? But the truth is, a lot of this stuff is definitely still going on, but it's coming to light now. And so you have more opportunity to face things when there's an open, safe discussion to be had. And this is where things can get kind of interesting. So, in terms of astrology, the signs that have the most potential to, or should I say the element? Yeah, the element that has the potential to be the most in tune with their emotions are water. So, again, like a water moon, for instance, because that's your emotional state. Earth moons are also, there's more stability there. Now, I'm not saying that means that if you have a water moon or an earth moon that you're definitely going to be emotionally stable and emotionally safe. That's just not the truth. It all depends on what you've been through, what's been modeled to you, and all these kinds of things. I'm just saying it is easier because these particular people, they run with emotions. Like, that's just how things work. When we talk about like communication, intellect, Mercury does better in air or fire, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that if you have an earth or a water, it's going to be bad, right? It doesn't mean that. It's just different. I'm just saying what these planets, what these planets and asteroids, the energy or elements they prefer to be in, it can give you a bit more of a foundation under the right circumstances. That's all. But yeah, it's more when it comes to emotions, they are complex. They have many, many layers and facets. There can be memories attached, and that's usually how it works. Memories and even where you can get kind of stuck. That's an interesting one, is that you can get stuck on how you feel. And one of the biggest issues, I think, is, like I said, this can be little things, and it all depends on how you as an individual deal with ridicule of your emotions. And it depends on how often it happens, how much trauma goes with it. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And again, everybody has their own unique individual lessons that they have to learn. But the thing that can happen is, like, when you're little, right? You don't really have any understanding of the way that society has been set up. You don't really have an understanding of past history or any of this sort of stuff. None of that comes into play. You're in your own little world and you're experiencing things for the first time. You're at the mercy of your parents or your caregivers. So it all depends on what level your parents or caregivers have met themselves emotionally as to how they can meet you. Now, we can see this because the amount of people who will say, children can be so mean. Yes, that's true, but where did they learn it from? You can pretty much guarantee if you're dealing with a child who just says terrible things, they sort of have bullying behavior or they say cruel things to other people. They learn that in their family. And it usually starts, like I said, with the parents or the caregivers because they're the adults. So they're the ones who set the precedent on what is accepted and what's allowed. The other thing that can be really interesting is that, parents will say things to children like, I'm the adult, you do what I say. And, get over it. It's not a big deal. All of these types of dismissive sort of things, it lets the child know that their emotions are not important and they don't matter to the adult. And it also doesn't teach them how to be comfortable or understand their emotions. It makes it seem like it's something embarrassing or dirty or shameful that they have to, keep to themselves. And it's isolating. It's an inconvenience. And children, even if they don't fully understand that or can't articulate it, they feel it. So that's how emotions work. It doesn't matter how old or how young you are, you feel what you feel. And whether you really fully understand this or not, it doesn't really matter. Your body knows it. Your heart knows it. Your mind knows it. You can feel it. And so this is what's tricky. A child who has a lot of personal resilience will sort of get through it. They'll understand on a level that there's something wrong with their parent or caregiver. They'll feel that. They'll know it. But the majority, and again, there's varying differences, but the majority think it's their fault. They'll internalize that, well, obviously if I was a better kid, then my parent wouldn't be treating me this way. So that's an interesting thing. It becomes something they bury then, something they feel shame over and they have to hide. And then, of course, that's when your first sort of people-pleasing or, behaving nicely sort of stuff begins. But it's where you deny your emotions. That's where these things first start. It can be other things too, like, there can be obviously abuse, verbal, mental, physical, and of course it depends on how each person internalizes that. But one thing can be sure in these situations, based on the trauma we feel, based on the isolation or the mockery or whatever, it's then seen as, well, the way I feel is wrong. And so I have to bury it, I have to hide it, because it's not safe, to show it for whatever reason. And now this might seem strange that I'm going into all of this, but the reality is, however you respond to your parents' lack of emotional intelligence, understanding, and regulation will also determine what you spend your life doing if you don't work on these lessons. And once again, that's another thing a lot of people aren't taught how to do. Emotions, by and large, are connected to vulnerability and accountability. And a lot of people run from these things because it makes people feel weak or scared or whatever. When the reality is, the power is understanding your emotions, understanding how you feel at any given moment, and understanding there's nothing wrong with that, and knowing what to do with it. This, of course, takes time, it takes experience, it takes self-understanding, self-respect, self-love, lots of these things, and the desire to look deeper, to understand, especially because, like I said, most people's parents don't know these things, so they can't teach you. Most people do not understand their emotions, they don't know how to regulate them, and therefore they can't teach future generations. Like, we all know this. Some of us are lucky and have one parent who has at least, some understanding, or at least an understanding that's compatible with ours. Some people are really lucky and both parents do. Some people aren't lucky at all and neither. And so that can very much depend and cause issues for the way that you deal or not deal with how you feel. But the situation is this: if you don't dig deeper into yourself one way or another to understand your emotions, why you feel what you feel, why you do what you do, then you'll be going through life blindly. You're more likely to be reactive, and you're more likely to have even chemical addictions and things like this, because a lot of people start that as a way of hiding. Either hiding from the pain they've been put through, the experiences they've faced. Again, if there's been abuse and stuff, these are very, very common things because, especially with abuse, there's something that's been taken from you. Your autonomy of your body or whatever. And so you try and bury it so that you don't have to feel it. And even if you've blocked some of it, which is really common, you still have a level of it affects you. It affects, and especially the emotions. So, and look, at the end of the day, there's nothing we can do about other people. You know, we can't change our parents. We can't change people we interact with, kids or adults. You can't change that. There's nothing you can do about that, in fact. What you can do is take matters into your own hands and spend the time to figure out what you feel, why you feel it, and then not put yourself down over it. It doesn't really matter what you feel. I mean, of course it does. And I'm not talking about that you shouldn't care about it. That's not what I mean by it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter the range of what you feel. It's more what you do with it, how you treat yourself because of how you feel. All of these things are going to be a lot more important because you can't help how you feel. And it can be anything, right? I mean, it could be you had a small conversation with someone and you found what they said to be particularly cutting or mean or, filled with ridicule or whatever the situation might be. Once again, there's nothing you can do about that other person. You can't change what they said. You can't change what they meant. You could have misinterpreted. That's quite possible. That's very common. Miscommunication is usually a big part of confrontation and issues in general, and emotional reactivity. So it's quite possible that you took it the wrong way. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what other people think of you because, well, it's like us with other people. We don't know what other people are going through. They don't know what you're going through. They can't understand your experiences because they didn't go through it. You did. They can't understand. I mean, they might have something similar, which helps them, on a level, but they didn't go through what you went through. They aren't you. So that's what makes us so interesting and unique. We're all different. And so we never truly understand another person the way that they understand themselves. And even then, a person may not even understand themselves that well. So it just goes more and more complicated the further you go down the rabbit hole. But the situation is this: you're not going to have the same lens or perspective that they have, just like they can't have the same one that you have. So empathy, curiosity, these things go a long way. The understanding that, well, I haven't gone what you've been through. I haven't gone through it. But I can put myself in your shoes and I can sort of imagine how I would feel in that situation. And I don't think I'd feel very good. I think I'd be sad or hurt or angry or whatever. And that's validating. Not just for the other person, but for you as well. And I can go deeper. I think a big one of when it comes to even this topic itself is the concept of feeling exposed if you feel like someone else has called you out or made fun of you, whatever. And the defensiveness usually occurs because there's some level of truth or uncertainty. If somebody has made fun of you or cut you down, you're reacting because some part of you wonders, is what they said true? And again, the only way that you can wonder that is if you don't really know yourself very well. If you don't know yourself well enough and somebody else says something, again, it's usually their own insecurities or something they've observed about you based on their insecurities. This is the thing with these situations. They're mirrors. And again, it's always the person who gets upset. It's the person who gets defensive is the one who has the work to do. That's how it is. And it like I've heard people go, oh, well, it should be the other person's responsibility. They should know. It's like, how? You can't expect another person to know all of your issues. I mean, think about it. That's simply not fair and not realistic. So this idea of, you did that on purpose. It's like, how? Because that would hurt you? Might not hurt the other person. And this is something I notice a lot of people don't really understand until it's brought to their attention. it's very, very likely that it hurt you. It didn't hurt the other person. Because we're all hurt by different things. We all feel different things. We're all connected to different things. We've had different experiences. That's why it's so important to take the time to understand your emotions. Because if you understand them, you're settled by them, the whole thing is, something you can work with. It just doesn't matter then. Right? I mean, sometimes it can still get under your skin a little bit, but at the end of the day, if you know yourself, you know how you feel at any given moment, and somebody says something like way out of left field, I mean, you don't want to make fun of them and be insulting in return. That doesn't make the situation better. But it's kind of funny in a way, and not in a mockery kind of way. Like, it's kind of ironic. It's like, who are you talking about right now? Because you're not talking about me. That perspective has nothing to do with me. And I think sometimes it's worth putting it back onto the person and be like, look, that's obviously something you're going through. I can't take responsibility for that. And some people might go, oh, well, you're not taking accountability. Well, it's like, but how many people, number one, know somebody else's feelings very well? None of us. All right? Very, very, very few. Most people don't even understand their own emotions. So how is it that you know somebody else's emotions that well? You know what hurts them, and you went out of your way to do it on purpose. I mean, when you break it down like that, it sounds pretty silly. Right? I mean, it is. It's quite silly. So this idea of you hurt me on purpose thing is, that's like mastermind territory. This is a person who really is studying you. And let's just face it, most people are in survival mode. They're too busy worrying about how they're going to pay their bills or how they're going to take care of this or take care of that. They're not thinking about you and what hurts you. They've got better things to do. And this should be reassuring. I would think that, oh, okay, well, that's good. And even think about yourself. Do you go out of your way to hurt other people? I can pretty much guarantee your answer is no, you don't. You have other things to be doing. So it's just that understanding. The understanding of yourself then helps you understand others. And again, the more you understand your emotions, the easier it is for you to do that. Obviously, I want to go into way more about this. Emotional understanding and emotional regulation is my playground. I've worked very hard to understand what I do about myself and about other people. And I'm a Cancer, so Cancers, it's our domain. Emotions are our area. Again, a low vibration Cancer is a master manipulator of emotions. Again, I still don't think anybody's that great at, knowing what every single person's pain is and then inflicting it on them. But a low vibration Cancer can be very, very dangerous. High vibration Cancer, the more high vibration, the more the Cancer knows themselves, the more work that they've done, the more emotional understanding and regulation can occur. And, that's the cool part about every sign. Every single sign has things that they can contribute. Again, depending on where it's placed and, what you can do with it. But yeah, emotions, feelings, and, that understanding is Cancer's domain. So I figure I'll do my part and, help people out with this arena. Obviously, if this is something you want to understand more about yourself, like how you feel, why you feel the way that you feel, and what you can do with it. I mean, a big 3 reading would be something I could do, where I could focus on your moon sign, but obviously other placements. I don't think I've created one about emotional regulation, which, that might be worthwhile. And I would look at all the placements to do with that in the chart and then help people understand how to make the most of it. But, yeah, I'll look into that perhaps. Otherwise, I'll continue with, I don't know how many parts I'm going to do, but this is something I can talk about. It is multi-layered, multifaceted, and it is ongoing. So I think I will definitely get into that and do more parts. So I hope it's been enjoyable, and I'll see you guys for the next one.